Hey guys, this is Hades. This is a Raid Shadow Legends video. Guys, I just want to do a video which kind of ties up all of the work I've done around the Clan Boss Draft event. For those who've been watching, it's been totally fun for me to do. I've really enjoyed it. Hats off to Deadwood Jedi for coming up with the idea, the concept, and for running it so damn well. And I think we've already got ideas around how we could do it differently next time. You know, things like ban phases, things like only having so many legendary champions available or epics or what have you. So there's definitely a lot of stuff we could do. And you can actually do a really similar type of theme outside of Clan Boss as well. So really cool concept from Deadwood Jedi. And thanks for Raid for letting us have the test server to do it on. So let's just quickly recoup what happened. The draft pick, I always thought to myself, I want to do an old school traditional team. And I knew that I wanted a 2-for-1 speed team, which meant that I either take someone like a Seeker or someone like a Lydia or someone like Michelle, someone who's going to boost my turn meter or boost my speed. I went Lydia. My next pick was then Valkyrie because I wanted those big shields from Vault. Vault lets you go long into the game. I actually wanted Iron Brado really badly, but Cold Brew stole Iron Brado away. I needed someone who's going to extend buffs. I went with Sandlashed. My preference would have been God Seeker. Because Godseeker would bring healing as well. But it turns out in my runs, Sandlashed was actually totally clutch in terms of saving my stun target or saving my ally protection champion a bit further down the road. So turns out Sandlashed was actually a really good pick. And it also turns out, if you actually watch my run, I didn't even need healing. What is this comp that you do not need healing? I am shocked. Like, you'll see my gear in a minute, and you will be absolutely mesmerized that there was no form of healing in it whatsoever. I then picked a Surga, who was an ally protect champion that had a decrease attack ability. I knew that a Surga was going to be the one champion that I would potentially sub. And eventually I did. I subbed her out for Coke, who was much harder to use, much harder to speed tune. And I'll show you in a second the speed tune I would have used if a Surga was in my team. It's way easier to build, and a Surga could be subbed out for Taragi or another ally protector, providing you covered decreased attack somewhere else. My final champion was Tatura. I needed someone who could make my team affinity friendly, so block buffs, or block debuff, sorry, was a really important ability. I also wanted increased defense running through my team to make Vault shields bigger, and to make my defensive champions hit harder. So that was the draft. And I felt like, there was a lot of chat at the time that I had a weak team. I was happy with my team. I just knew that I lacked a bit of damage. And I also was worried about a lack of healing, which turned out to be something I didn't need to worry about. But certainly the damage side of it, I was worried about. Kyuku kind of sold that for me. So we ended up building out. So let me talk you through the speed tune. Okay, I worked with one of the team, HH Gaming, Saphyrra, and we kind of started bouncing ideas. I showed him an initial speed tune, which is one I built ages ago, and I was like, this is a team that can work with Lydia, and I've used Lydia and Vault together. Can we try and squeeze Kyuku into this team? And actually the first thing we did was we came up with a comp that would work really easily with a Surga, and this was actually based on the team that I built in the past. So we basically built this comp here, which I will pin down below, with a Surga. A Surga could be swapped out for another ally protector. Taragi would do that job really well. And basically what this comp does is it gives us Valkyrie counterattack. It gives us Valkyrie shields for both AoE abilities. It gives us increased defense for when the Valkyrie counterattack goes on, which means the shields are way bigger. It gives us ally protection covered on everybody for every single hit, because a Surga does ally protection 3 on a 3-turn duration, which is nuts. We get block debuffs out for both of the affinity stuff, so we're not taking any kind of nasties on affinity, and we get block debuffs on most of our champions for stun hits, actually for all champions for stun hits as well. So it's affinity friendly. We got the buffs in the right place. This comp, I'm going to show you a run of at the end, just so you can kind of see what level of damage I would have been able to squeeze out with this team. But actually, I was still pretty happy with this team before we decided to get Koukou in the mix. So we then started playing with speeds, okay? And my comps started getting faster and faster and harder to build. But Saphyrra had a breakthrough and managed to find a way to get Koukou into a 2-for-1 comp. And this is hard to do, especially with the champions that we're running. You have to get Sandlashed's buff extend in the right place. You have to still get coverage on the counterattacks and what have you. And it kind of got to a place where it's like, we've done it, but Koukou doesn't have the bout shield. Koukou didn't have a counterattack, and Koukou was a big part of my damage. And the kind of buff spread was not quite where we wanted it to be. But it was a start. This meant that I could bring Koukou in at least, and I knew that Koukou would do a lot more damage for me than a Surga. So we kind of got this comp. And then from this point, when you've got a comp that runs, you can then start to finesse if you've got some sort of idea around how the clan boss calculator works. So I then started to switch people's roles, switch people's positions, and see if I could come up with something else. And honestly, me and Saphyrra, we were just back and forth, probably for 12 hours with different comps that we'd kind of worked through. And I will pin some of those down below because it might be that you can use them to build your own teams. So then Saphyrra had a massive breakthrough moment where it was like, you know what, we don't actually need block debuffs on everybody for the stun hit. We only need it on one champion. And because Tatura can put Veil on everybody else, it means the clan boss will have to hit Tatura. And I was like, brilliant. So he sent me a comp, which didn't look quite like this, but had this kind of makeup. And the trouble with this is that my Tatura is fully booked, which means that I have to manual the A3 just before the clan boss hit every single time. And that's rough. It's not something which I would want to do ongoing. But I think unbooked, Tatura would work in this comp full auto. Or there's definitely some work that could be done around a full auto kind of look at this. But certainly for the run that I did for the draft, I autoed it until this point here, just before the stun. And then I stopped the auto and I did the A3 myself. On the setup for the run, I actually completely disable from clan boss. I completely disable Tatura's A3. So Tatura thinks she's never going to use it. I actually override it. So I do the A3, and therefore I will never have anyone but Tatura taking the stun hit. What's super cool about that is Tatura puts out a massive smack and puts up a big shield before it's about to be stun hit. So actually the comp starts to work really, really sweet. I also managed to get buff coverage for everybody. So we got the counter attack for Koukou. We got the big shield for Koukou. We got the increased defense before Valk did the big shields. We got ally protection on everything except for the stun hit. And we had strengthen up for all of the big stuff. Like, the buff coverage was as good as I think it could be for this team. So I was really pleased with the overall kind of team comp that we eventually got to. But I just wanted to stress, like, these things don't just come out of thin air. These builds take a lot of time, a lot of refining to get to a place where you're actually, in the end, really happy with where you are in terms of the speed tune. The speed tune's more important than the builds, honestly. Once you've got these speed tunes in play, then it's just a case of, right, what gear sets do I need? How do I want to run this team? Now, because we're on the test server, I was able to +3 my Valk, which is a really fun thing to do. It means that she gets a lot more stats from empowerment. Look at this. I got an extra nearly 500 defense from the empowerment and a bunch of other stats as well, which is fun. I also +2'd my Lydia, which meant I got an extra 10 speed, which was helpful because I needed to run fast in this comp. And then everyone else was just kind of as normal. Now, because of the player power cap, which eventually was 350,000, I actually had to strip out all of my Barbarian Faction Guardian. I stripped out my High Elf one as well. I stripped out bar 2 my Shadowkin. I left my Dark Elf one full because I needed that extra +10 speed for Lydia. And I stripped out my epics for Sandlashed. So basically, a lot of the stats that I could have got, which would have upped my damage by quite a bit, by the way, and longevity and everything else, came out. Yeah? I also had to consider what are the best gear sets for these different builds. So if you think about what we've got going on here, I've got somebody who is going to give me whopping great big shields. No special gear set here. I just wanted about to have the best defense I could whilst having a really strong amount of damage. You notice all of my affinity champions here have got 85 or thereabouts % crit rate. That's because I knew that I wanted for my final run to hit Force Affinity Clan Boss. I had 4 Spirit Affinity champions, 1 Void Affinity. So Force Affinity Clan Boss was my absolute go-to. Everybody I was building to 85% crit rate. And in Valk, I just wanted high defense and high damage. By Lydia, I went for a Guardian set. Guardian set is like another ally protection. Basically, it protects my ally protector. So she is going to take 10% of the damage away from my ally protector. And I was concerned about turn 50 plus for Kyuku. What happens when her block damage buff is gone and she starts taking big damage? Well, Lydia in a Guardian set was going to help me do that. I then picked out Tatura as just an absolute cannon. Because her A3 puts a shield on her equal to 20% of the damage that she does, I needed a massive hit with the A3 before the clan boss does a slam. His stun hit. Stun hit is always on Tatura, and I needed to be able to withstand the stun hit. I thought the stun hit would be what would ruin my run in the end. So this was really important. Also bought me the increased defense here as well. But yeah, I basically went full damage, and you'll see in my final run, damage was high on Tatura Rimehide. She's got good multipliers. Kyuku, I originally built in stalwart gear because I thought that Kyuku was going to take insane damage from turn 50 plus. It turns out this champion is freaking insane if you can get the speed tune working. Like, this champion was a game changer in my team. And wow, what an amount of damage she put out in the final run. Eventually, because I wasn't taking damage through Stalwart or taking enough damage, and because, I don't know if you clocked this, but on the test server, Clan Boss is capped at 1,000 turns, which is the old style Clan Boss. I could have gone longer, but because it was capped at 1,000 turns, instead of the 1,500 turns that we've got on the main servers now, I thought, well, I might as well just push as much damage as I can in the turns that I'm alive. So I ended up going full damage, Savage Set, Kyuku. Savage Set actually increases the amount your War Master hits proc for, your Giant Slayer hits proc for. So over the course of 1,000 turns, this is going to add up. And then for final build, we had Sandlashed, who was in a second Guardian set. It's really important. So 2 Guardian sets. When the stun hits are coming in on Tatura, 20% nigh on 19 odd % of that damage is being soaked away. So Tatura's not taking a full blast from the stun. And when Kyuku is kind of taking the protected damage from everybody, actually Sandlashed and Lydia are both just absorbing some of that damage away. It just spreads the damage across the team a bit and gives us a bit of survivability. And actually, Guardian set does give you a heal as well when per turn, which is quite a big heal, 10%. Now, as I say, I didn't have any healing at all. The only form of healing whatsoever, apart from Guardian sets, I put on was the Immortal set here on Tatura. And that was just for when we started to take some stun hits. I then had 6 turns of 3% heals to try and top back up some of that health that was lost. In terms of masteries, everybody, apart from Lydia, was running the same. And actually, when I first tested this, everybody was running basically the same mastery set. And it was offensive with defensive. Defensive gives you a lot of survivability, a lot of sustain over the course of the run, especially masteries like Blast Proof. The 2 big AoEs, you've got 5% less damage coming in from those. And especially Delay Death, 6% straight damage reduction from Delay Death. Life Drinker towards the end of the fight gives me a little bit of sustain for people that are actually taking damage. So everybody's build was basically the same as this. I changed, though, Lydia's build. I noticed in my early runs that I did not have decreased defense and weaken on for enough of the fight. There was spells where it came off just because of the way my abilities rotated. And because I wasn't taking insane levels of damage, I decided to switch Lydia to this kind of support style tree, I guess. So everyone had this same offensive tree pretty much. But with Lydia, I just wanted to get Master Hexer out there and give myself a chance to put decreased defense on for 3 turns and cover spells where decreased defense was dropping off. So that's my build. You can kind of see on everybody, I've capped either 100% crit rate or 85 if it was needed. But Lydia actually was in quite low defense numbers and quite low sustainability numbers just because Vaut was doing so much work. And I think I probably could have even fine-tuned other people to have lower defense and survived easily. But obviously defense on everyone else was also their damage. So you can see here my Tatura, 5.8k defense, 261% crit damage. My Kyuku, near enough 5k defense, 266% crit damage. My Sandlashed was 4.6 defense and 228% crit damage. Okay, here we go. So I'm just going to show the run. I'm not going to show all of it. I'm just going to show bits of it, which are important. So, I mean, the setup's important, obviously. So we start with A1 from our Lydia, A2 from our Valk. We go A1 to Tatura. We go A3 into A2 on Kyuku. And then A1 Sandlash. This is important. You need to hold that Sandlash ability for a couple of turns. Everyone gets their counter attacks in. And we got a few now where we start to do main ability. So after the counter attacks come in, we get the A2 in from Lydia. We then just go like a bunch of A1. So Valk A1. We do Tatura A1. Kyuku A1. Sandlashed A1. After this, it's auto. So I hit auto from this point. And as I said to you, so it goes full auto here until after the first stun, right up to the second stun. And then before the second stun on Tatura's last ability, every turn from thereafter, I use Tatura's A3. And you can just see, and I'll get kind of on a bit further in the run, and you'll be able to see that Tatura creates her own shield and a massive, massive shield so that it can just tank up all of that stun. And it just runs beautifully until a lot longer. So we're going to get ourselves up to turn 50. Now, Kyuku is basically forming an unkillable team at this point. Up until turn 50, blocked damage is so strong with ally protection that it's basically an unkillable team. After turn 50, the clan boss hits through block damage, and that no longer counts for us. So we're going to see here a stun here at turn 50, which is late into the game, by the way. Look at how well Tatura can tank this stun hit when it comes through. So A3 goes on there. Massive shield applied by Tatura on herself, alongside the block buffs that she's already put up. And it basically, even at turn 50, doesn't even eat away the shield yet. On turn 51, we've now got, this is where I was initially worried. Kyuku, I thought was going to start taking insane levels of damage because the block damage does not work from this moment on. By the way, I'm doing 2 million per turn in a normal team with no recognized damage dealer, no recognized healer. Look at this. Turn 51, I was like that. All of the shields are barely scratched at turn 51, turn 52. I was like, wow, this is actually insane. This team is bonkers good. Like, I couldn't even believe my eyes. I thought at that point I was going to run into problems and my run was going to be around, maybe a 115, 120 mil team. So we then roll on quite a while, like a long time. Let's get ourselves up to like turn 70 odd. This is now insane levels of clan boss. 150 mil. It's insane to get to this level. This is my second best ever clan boss team, built from a draft of random champions on the fly. Like, I know I've done it on the test server and had extra glyphs and stuff, but still, it's nuts. This team is actually nuts. If Tatura could be full auto, this would be a beautiful team, honestly. But even at this point, turn 74 now. I'll show you the stun hit at this point. And, you know, the stun hits are this. And don't forget, every single time, me, stop, A3, auto goes back on. You won't believe how many runs I did. Well, no, not that many, but I did a good few runs. Look, it's just starting to take a little bit of damage at turn 75. But yeah, I did quite a few runs where I messed it up. And that is painful when you're doing a semi-auto. Shield comes on. Let's see what happens to our counter-attack shields at turn 75 on Clan Boss here. These big Valk shields. And this is why I didn't have a recognized healer, by the way. Because I could not believe my eyes at how well these shields were holding. Kyuku has still got shield available at turn 75 against Clan Boss. I mean, strengthen, 25% less damage. We've got the massive defense buff with massive shields from Valk. Ally protection is up. It is an insane combination, and it is a puzzle, Clan Boss. It is a combination of these different buffs creating this absolutely insane team. So if I then go on towards the end, now, on our normal server, we get 1,500 hits. On this server, and I found this out on one of my first early runs. I was getting close to dying, by the way. But see, Sandlashed, let me pause it there. The reason why Tatura lives at that point, Sandlashed kicks in an ally protection and absorbs 50% of that damage. The Sandlashed clutch moment pops up. Who knew? Well, I did. Sandlash is a brilliant champion. Sandlash just protects Tatura there. Tatura would be in the dirt at that point. And she also did it now and then on Kyuku if there was a big crit on some of my other runs. It didn't happen on this run, but I got to this turn limit several times. In fact, I never didn't get to the turn limit if I didn't mess up my actual ability cycle. This team is as consistent as I've ever seen a team be. So we get to turn 87 here, and I was thinking, how do I get a little bit more damage out? So I knew the turn limit was just coming, and in the end, I was just like, I'll stuff it, hit auto, because I think I pretty much do it anyway. But yeah, we get to our turn limit. I think I probably would have lasted at least another couple of cycles. But yeah, 1,000 turn limit kicks in. So I hit the 177.7 mil, which, by the way, is mental damage considering it still had a way to go. This is at least a 185 mil team, if not more. And don't forget, I emptied out my faction guardians, and I didn't even have like my best gear on people like Lydia because my player cap, my player power cap was already hitting. So I was so pleased with this team. Kyuku, 52 million damage. She's your protector, and she has done nearly a third of the damage. I was like that. This Kyuku is nuts. What a champion that is. Defense aura, the ally protection, weaken on the A1. Like, what a champion. Decrease attack on the A2. Damn. If she was a bit easier to speed tune, she would be in teams all over the place. What a great champion. Sandlashed and Valk, both doshing up 33 mil damage. Not bad considering they're kind of like support units. Lydia, honestly, pretty damn weak, 16 mil. She was also my worst build because I knew that I had to give player power elsewhere. So I maybe could squeeze another few million out of that if I was doing it without a player power cap. And then Tatura, 42 million. Also making sure the stun target went in the right place. Also making sure that we had increased defense for our Valk shields. This team is all about synergy. It's all about abilities like merging together to form an absolute beast of a unit. So I was super pleased with it. I'm so psyched about this competition. I am now going to go on and show you my run using a Surga in the Kyuku spot, just so you can see really what sort of level of damage I might have been able to achieve in that build. All right, so in this team, Sandlash becomes the lead. I've not kept a player power because I'm not doing it for the actual comp, so I'm over on player power. I could slim it back down again. And yeah, basically, I've just I've had to rework everybody's speed. So everyone's not quite as fine-tuned as they were in terms of damage numbers and that type of stuff. But it'll give you a feel, at least, for what my original team comp was capable of doing. Okay, then. So we are going to do the setup for this one. And then we're going to be able to let this one run full auto. So A2 in here, A1 for the rest of the team. Need to hold back some abilities on this one. So the setup's a bit longer for this speed tune, but it is overall in a better shape because you can go full auto on this one. So we then go A1 for everyone until Sandlashed. Then we get the A3, which is the ally protection ability and strengthen on Saphyrra, albeit she'll have strengthen anyway from Lydia, so it's not a big deal in this comp. We're going to go A3 here, which will set us up for having the block buffs out for when the clan boss does his normal increase attack. We go A2 here to block debuffs, which means it becomes affinity friendly. Get all our counter attacks in. We then get the A1 from Sandlashed again. A2 here from Saphyrra, which is our decrease attack ability. This is going to be our only decrease attack, so it needs to hold. I've set it up for the actual run so that it lands on both attacks before the AoEs, which is really important, rather than before the stun. Stun does not have attack in its number. Then we just go A1, A3 here, which means that Tatura again becomes the stun target in this comp. Another A1 from Sandlashed. And Lydia and Saphyrra. Clan boss should stun here because everyone else has got a veil. We go A1, A1, A1. A3 now from the Lydia, which gives us that block buff at the right time. The A3 again here for the ally protect. So much longer setup, as you can see, but it does get us into a good spot by the time we get going. Another A1 here, and then we go full auto. And all I'm going to do is just going to let it run for a little bit, check on turn 6 that everyone gets their 2 abilities away and they get them away at the right time. And at that point, we should be good to have a consistent run all the time. So I'm going to let this run through. I'll let the stun hit, and then I'll pause it. And I'll just make sure in one time speed that everyone's doing what they should be doing at the right time. As I say, this is a brand new build for me. So stun should come in after this one. Oh no, so not just yet. Stun's going to come in about now. So then we get the Valk. What's happened so far? Yeah, Valk, we've got the ally protection. Tatura A1, Sandlashed A2, Lydia's A1, Valk's A1, Saphyrra's A2, A1, A1, A1. Okay, I think we're good. So I'm going to let that play through. And I will show you the damage at the end. I'll also let you know how far we actually get into the fight with this team. I thought I'd check in here, turn 51. So we've got the same type of longevity in the team. Speed tune is running absolutely perfectly. I will say, I didn't mention it earlier, you have to set Tatura to prioritize his A2, not his A3. Otherwise, your speed tune will go out of sync if you're using Tatura in this kind of type of build. But yeah, look, we're on 52. We're absolutely like tanking up all the AoEs. We're tanking up all the stuns in the same way we did with the other team. The biggest challenge, though, is on the other team by now, we're at a 2 million per turn score. Right now, we're at not even 1.5 million per turn. So just swapping Kyuku for Saphyrra is an extreme damage reduction. Saphyrra does abilities that don't hit. So Kyuku is actually hitting for pretty much all of her abilities, and she gets an extra turn. So even when she does her ally protection round, she does an extra turn when she gets a hit. So it just means that Saphyrra gets less straight up damage hits. She's actually got a couple of abilities where she just does stuff. She just helps your team out. So it definitely makes a big difference. Plus Kyuku's hitting 3 times on her A1. Saphyrra's hitting 1 time, and that 1 time is less than 1 of the Kyuku hits. So I'm going to let it run through to the end. Let's see what sort of damage we get at the end. But I do feel like this same team or this team will go to maximum turns. So here we go. I'm actually 84 turns in. Asurga's just taken a dive, which didn't happen in my other run. So we're slightly weaker. And once Asurga goes down, we lose our ally protection and the run is going to fall apart. So we're probably like literally 2 turns short of maximum turns on this team, which is a shame. It would have been cool to have done the full maximum on both teams. But still, we've got a run that has lasted a hell of a long time. But the damage number is considerably less. So we've got 122 million on this team. 30, 30, 26, 17. Asurga's done the 18 million versus the 50 odd, what was it, 55 or something from Kyuku. So still a solid team, still very strong, but not to the level of the team I ended up building. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Loads of links will be down below for you to be able to pick up your own comps. I've been Hell Hades. I will see you later.